Hello, welcome to the Strawberry Loli movie review channel. Where is that coming from? Jeez, okay. Um, Hold on a second. You know how we do. We got to get settled for the first few minutes. I have my earplugs in, so don't mind me. Like if I sound weird or something, that's why. But hold on, let me pull you a little closer. Yeah, that's better. Let me just really quickly put on some glitter. Where's my chunky? Oh, God, you guys, my desk is such a mess. There's like notebooks, pens, makeup, another laptop. There's two laptops on my desk. Clearly, I need a bigger desk or just a bigger apartment in general. All right, you know what? I'm just going to use this one, even though it's not. I have another one. This is by Focolor that has like really chunky glitters. That was the one that I wanted, but I guess this will just have to do. Oh, yeah, that's frosty at least. Okay. So I watched the Wonka movie today, you guys, opening day in Japan. I booked the first screening available at my local theater, which was at 9:40 a.m., which is like not a bad time, especially on a weekday to get up for. Plus it's like literally under 10 minutes walk for me to get to my theater. So, yeah, but every time I book a movie in advance though, like somehow it just happens to where that day becomes a struggle for me to get there on time, but I made it. I will say, like, I don't know, I kind of regretted, not really though, but I kind of did not pick the best seat. So I picked the smallest theater because usually whenever it's like English language movies, I don't like to watch the Japanese dubbed one. I like to watch the original English one and then they'll have Japanese subtitles. So the problem is though, usually they screen that one in like the smaller, crappier theater, not the one with the IMAX and the latest technology. Although for Wonka, since it's a big movie and it's opening day, they did have another English language screening during lunchtime in the IMAX theater. And I feel like, because as I was walking out of my screening, the crappy small theater, I saw that they were handing out like folders, complimentary folders with artwork from the movie to the people that had the IMAX tickets. So I was like, "Ooh, that might have been a better deal for me." And also I didn't choose the best seat. I chose like the very first row all the way on the corner because I don't know, like even though it was the smaller theater, which I expected less people to be there because that's like most people in Japan, they're gonna watch the Japanese dubbed one. But I don't know, I just wanted to be, like, alone, and I wanted to make sure that I was not sitting next to anyone, so I just picked the first row right next to the exit, and that was not a good angle to watch the movie at, I discovered, 'cause, yeah, that screen was just not the best, but it was also the cheapest ticket price. Anyway, I say all this to say also, okay, I guess we're as long as we're on this topic, I will just mention that I was a little disappointed at the merch as well, 'cause, like, my local theater, it's small, it's in Chofu. Sometimes it doesn't have as much merch that's available at the theaters in the busier parts of Tokyo. So yeah, when I was looking at the little kiosk, I just saw, oh, okay, it's the same regular offerings, like a couple of stickers, clear folders. I mean, I don't really use folders like that. If I do, I prefer for it to be completely clear. Like, yes, the movie artwork and stuff, it's always nice, when you see that on the folder, but every time I buy those, I tend to not even use them because, like, I need to see what's inside my folders, you know? And I can't do that if the artwork on the entire folder is the movie artwork. So, yeah. But yeah, there was like a pencil case and then one pen and just a bunch of stickers. And that was pretty much it. And then so I thought to myself, like, I almost picked up the pencil case, but I decided to hold off a little bit because I wanted to see, because I'm going into the city, like Tokyo Central, on Monday next week. So I thought I'd swing by one of the bigger cinemas, like the, what's it called? The one with the Godzilla. I forget the group name. Toho Cinemas, yeah. They or Walt 9, which is my favorite cinema. It's like in Shinjuku, but not as crowded as the Toho Cinemas, but they still have a very large selection of merch. So I was gonna swing by that one if I had a chance on Monday to see what else they had available for Wonka. But then I just checked online and I realized that it really is limited to just these few items. So let me show you. It's just like, can you see? I need to figure out StreamYard. I know, but okay, yeah. So it's just like, a keychain. Like they're all very nice, very good quality, obviously. Japanese merch never really misses when it comes to the quality, but it's just like I don't want to pay 400 yen for a sticker. And they also have a mug, but it literally only says Wonka on it and it's just purple. And my thing is that why would I buy that? Why would I buy anything unless it had specific artwork related to this particular 2023 live action of Wonka, like the silhouette, have a silhouette of Timothy Chalamet or something. But yeah, this is literally everything that they had. A pen, some keychains, some stickers, folders, clear files, and washi tape. The washi tape is cute, but like 900 yen. Oh my god. Yeah, the washi tape is 900 yen. I don't really need that. And then the Wonka mug, which is like, I feel like it's too basic. It only says Wonka. You can't even tell that it's from this 2023 movie. So sadly, I had to pass on the merch, but I don't know. I might go back and get the pencil case, but it's also just really basic. You see, it just says Wonka. I know it's not clear, but yeah, it's just like a spiral and it says Wonka and there's no indication of Timothy on it. But anyway, enough about the merch. So, um I have my notes here. Let me try to go in order this time. Okay, so well, first of all, I put it in the title as well, but there's going to be spoiler alerts in this review. I cannot review a movie without giving spoilers. I'm not going to walk you through an entire summary, start to finish, of the movie or the plot. Like, I will bring up elements of the plot as I go along if it relates to my critique. But yeah, I'm not gonna like summarize for you. But basically, so we all know we know the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which starred Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, and then the next one after that was Johnny Depp. I don't even remember what year that was. I was in high school, I think, either middle school or high school. So that was one. I think that's the one that most people. That's kind of like the modern day rendition. Yeah, because the first one was quite a while ago, although it's always a classic. It was in the 1960s. I heard that Roald Dahl himself really hated that one, though. Hold on, let me take a sip of water. But yeah, so straight away in this new Wonka movie, it's pretty apparent that this is a completely different rendition. It's a completely different take on the Wonka story. There is no relation whatsoever, as at least from what I could see, there's no relation between this Wonka movie with Timothy Chalamet. Timothy or Timothée? Timothée. I think it's Timothy Chalamet. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, and I've never watched anything with Timothy in it. So this is my first time seeing one of his performances as an actor. Like I know that he's kind of seen as one of the Gen Z pretty boys, or like I don't know. My impression of him is kind of the Gen Z version of the emo heartthrob. And so I know that I think he rose to fame through his breakout performance in Call Me by Your Name, which I never watched that movie, and then Dune, which I also never watched. And I'm not interested in Dune, but I just know that you know what turns me off to Dune? Other than the fact that the story itself just doesn't interest me, although it takes place in a desert, so you would think that I would be interested because I do like the desert. I'm quite a fan, especially after, you know, my adventures in Egypt and Dubai. I discovered that I liked the desert. Like I always thought I was not a nature girl, and I still am not. Like for the most part, I'm a city girl. I like to stay indoors. I like to be in air conditioning or heated areas. I like to sit in the comfort of man-made places and environments. But I realized that nature doesn't have to be just like mountains and hiking and bugs and mud in the forest and stuff. It can also be in the desert where it's dry. And even though it's hot, it's a dry heat. So it's more bearable than humid heat. But anyway, I digress. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, the Dune cast is like so messy to me. That also is what turns me off from that whole franchise. Like Austin Butler, Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet. Is Tom Holland part of Dune? I wouldn't be surprised because Tom Holland is dating Zendaya, but I feel like there was a lot of just cross pollination there with the Dune cast. Also, Austin Butler looks ugly in Dune. I'm saying that as the character, okay, that he plays, which is the bad guy. I don't like the way he looks, and I know that that's the point, but like I'm not saying that Austin Butler looks bad. I'm just saying I don't like the character that he plays. Like nothing about that aesthetic draws me in. So yeah, if yeah, this Wonka movie, this would be definitely the only occasion that I would find myself compelled to watch anything that Timothy Chalamet is in. Um, but where was I? So this movie, this take on the Wonka origin story is totally different, it seems, from the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory starring Johnny Depp. Because do you remember in that movie the whole backstory on why Wonka went into the chocolate business and why also kind of why he was so eccentric, other than the fact that he was just like approaching middle age, is the fact that apparently he had apparently he had PTSD from his childhood with his tyrant father who was a dentist. So like he was very, I don't know if abusive necessarily is the word, but apparently his dad in the Johnny Depp version would like forbid him from eating chocolate, or he was restricted to only a very small amount, like one piece per year or something. And so he had PTSD from that, which prompted him to go in the complete opposite direction, like completely against his father's wishes as an adult. And instead of being a dentist, instead of following the family profession, he decided to be a chocolatier because he was so oppressed in his youth by his tyrant parent when it came to sweets. But then in this new movie, the 2023 version, it's kind of like a completely different opposite story. So we are introduced to the backstory of him having a very loving relationship with his mother. And like, I guess they were on at sea, like, I don't know, it showed in the flashbacks that him and his mom lived on a boat basically, or a ship. So I don't know, and it didn't mention any father figure whatsoever, it was just him and his mom, which I don't know why, like, I'm kinda suspicious about that because, like, are you promoting single motherhood on the low with this movie? Because you know Hollywood and their hidden agendas, okay? I have my eye on them. Like, I keep up to date with the conspiracy theories. I'm not saying that everything is necessarily a political message. As far as, like, woke agendas go, this movie is actually not that bad from in my opinion, like, overall. But yeah, that part I was just like, "Why just his mom, though?" Because they made it very clear that it was only him and his mom, so which implies that she was a single mom. But, like, who knows? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that his dad divorced her or anything. He could have, like, died under mysterious circumstances, but it just didn't mention any father figure whatsoever, which didn't really rub me the right way. But anyway, at least it was, like, not a traumatic story this time. It was kind of bittersweet because, like, he had a very loving relationship with his mom, and then, they were poor, so she did the best, but she couldn't really afford him the best opportunities in life. However and then she used to make, like, her homemade chocolate for him, right? That was a great memory from his childhood that he would it was like a a treat every time that his mom would make chocolates for him, and then he remembered it as the most delicious chocolate in the world, and then she told him about this famous place in, I guess, London. They don't really specify the city, but, like, it's obviously happening in London. I mean, Roald Dahl is British. So, yeah. And what was it called? Oh my god, I forget. It was like the chocolate plaza something. Sorry, I'm looking this up. Hmm. One second, one second. Oh my god, where it's gonna drive me crazy if I don't find this, so give me one second. I should, like, get in the habit of taking notes in the theater, I guess, but it's hard to do because it's, like, pitch black, and I don't necessarily want to focus on, like, writing things down while I'm trying to enjoy the movie. Gallery Gourmet, oh my god, yes. Okay, so there's, like yeah, I think it's London, basically, and then so there's this place called the Gallery Gourmet, which is, like, a shopping complex area, upscale shopping area where the 3 big chocolate makers in that city reside, one of them being Slugsworth. He's kind of like the kingpin of the whole chocolate cartel there. So I don't know, like, they added I feel like in the original story, Willy Wonka's biggest opponent was only Slugsworth. And then but in this movie, they added 2 more rivals. So there were 3 3, snobby, rich chocolatiers in total, and then it turns out that they were all in cahoots with each other, running a big chocolate cartel to make sure that basically only their 3 shops were able to sell and profit and become rich off of selling chocolate in that city. So, yeah, Willy Wonka and his mom used to live on a boat. Like, he basically spent his life at sea. I don't know if he was like a sailor or his dad was a sailor or maybe his mom worked as a maid on a ship. That kind of seems like yeah, that seems plausible. And so she fell ill though and died prematurely. And so he just like for the rest of his adolescence and into his early adult years, Willy Wonka remembers and wants to do right by the promise that he made her that one day he would open his own chocolate shop in the Gallery Gourmet upscale shopping district of London, right? That was like a huge dream for him and like very unreachable considering his very humble beginnings. But so the movie, yeah, like the story officially starts basically when he is traveling at sea and then he arrives at London and he first steps foot into the big city and he's like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of hope and confidence and just motivation to basically start selling his chocolate and start making a name for himself. And tell me why I was getting teary-eyed within the first like 5 minutes of the movie. Nothing sentimental had even happened yet, but it was just like the entire tone of the movie was a very it was very nostalgic. It was very like it gave me very classic charming movie vibes. Like I really like this movie. Overall, I feel like it's an instant classic for me. And that's not to say that I don't have my critiques about it, but overall, I really vibe with this movie. This is my type of movie. It was very classy. Yeah, the words classy, traditional come to mind. Very entertaining. Like they were able to I just felt like everything was so high caliber. Like even they were, there were some slapstick there was some slapstick comedy and jokes aimed at children, of course, thrown in there, but it was all done in a very tasteful, classic manner. They didn't need to rely on any sort of cheap, like modern day pop culture references or anything. So that was amazing. I love that they went that route. And yeah, I didn't know that this was a musical going into it. So if you're not a fan of musicals, that's a warning to you. But I would say though, even for people who are not typically into musicals, this one is not so unbearable. Like I found it to be it's stomachable. There was no song, there was no point in the film where I thought that it was unbearable. Like everything was done just so. It was pitch perfect, really. Like and then the new songs, I was very impressed. Okay, so the music, let me just yeah, let's talk about the music because I feel like I haven't thought about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in a while, although it is definitely it's one of my top favorite books, stories, movies growing up. But yeah, I guess like you know, after the Johnny Depp version came out, I haven't really revisited or thought about this story in a long time. But now that I'm thinking about it, I do believe that the original like the score, musical score for the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is probably one of the best out of any movie in cinema history. Like, it's just really, really good. I wonder who composed the original songs. But yeah, so obviously they did their their modern remakes of those classic songs like the Oompa Loompa song and the Pure Imagination. Those classics definitely um they redid it with Timothy singing or like, the new actors, and I think that it was done really well, but also the new songs that they added, I was pretty much blown away. I thought that they were just so wonderfully, superbly constructed and composed, and the style blended so seamlessly with the old songs that if I had never seen the original or the previous adaptations of this story, if this was my first time watching any Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, I would have thought like, I wouldn't be able to tell which songs were the new ones and which were the old. So I thought the music was absolutely spectacular, and again, a large part of that is also because they did not like, I think they purposely made it in the style of that traditional, like, nostalgic musical feeling. There was no hint of modern pop trash. I didn't catch even a whiff of a modern poppy sounding chorus, like Taylor Swift sounding chorus. So thank God, because that's like, I feel like they just did so right by this movie in terms of the soundtrack. And to top it off, I feel that Timothy Chalamet um, had an amazing voice. Like, I was so impressed with his vocal performances in this movie. When I say that he had an amazing voice, I don't mean obviously that he is the most technically talented vocal performer to ever walk this earth. I'm saying for this character and for this movie, I felt that his vocal performance and his singing style was perfect. It was not overdone at all. That's another way that a word that I could use to describe this movie overall is that everything was understated. Like, nothing was overdone, nothing felt desperate. It was just everything was just so. And I even feel that even the promo for this movie was understated, in my opinion. If you compare to, for example, Barbie, the Barbie movie earlier this year, which of course I loved, and that was a whole cultural moment on its own, totally different style from this movie, so they're not really comparable in that way. But if you compare like all of the hullabaloo that they did for the Barbie movie, like they must have spent millions on the promo for that movie, because it's not I'm not just talking about the press junkets and all of that, but like every cinema or pretty much every major cinema, every major city or place that was screening the Barbie movie, they had that Barbie life-sized doll box for people to pose in. Like, I took pictures in that as well. They had one at not at my local theater, but at the one in Shinjuku that I went to, Walt 9. And so just imagine how much that cost. I feel like there was none of that. Like, I barely knew that this movie was being released. I barely remembered that Wonka was coming out in December in Tokyo. That's how understated it feels, and I kinda love it. I kinda love that for them. Also, this was directed by the same director as the Harry Potter movies, or some of the Harry Potter movies. I feel like they changed director midway through that series, no? But yeah, so that also made a lot of sense to me when I realized that the it was the same director as the Harry Potter movies, because it definitely has that same, like, I don't know how to describe, like, cinematic, just old school cinematic British charm, understated, not acquiescing to, like, cheap tactics, cheap references to pop culture that other movies have to resort to gain clout. This is a classic, like an instant classic. This is something that, like, it's not this is a movie that is not gonna date itself 5, 10 years from now. I feel like, yeah, you could watch this every year. It's another Christmas classic, I feel. You could watch this every year at Christmas, 10 years out, 20 years out from now, and it's not gonna feel dated. And even though I feel like the special effects, it wasn't anything too spectacular in the by the way of special effects or just overall flashiness. It was more like the heart of the movie that drove the story, which I also find impressive. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, especially after coming off of all of the summer blockbusters, which really relied a lot, relied very heavily on, all of the action scenes and the explosions, which that stuff is really fun and all, but it's also really nice to be reminded that, oh, we don't necessarily need that to make a great impressionable movie, right? You can really just there's other ways, right? There's ways to inject a lot of heart, a lot of yeah, just emotion into a movie without having to be flashy or necessarily use like the most expensive tactics. And so, I mean, keep the point, like, I was ready to cry. I don't know what it was, a combination of the movie, the atmosphere, Timothy Chalamet's like eager, doe-eyed innocence that he played this part with, that made me want to cry within the first musical number when he steps onto London, because like you just know that this bright, pushy you just know that this bright, ambitious, bushy-tailed young man, who really, like, doesn't have a bad bone in his body. It's established very, very early on that he's just a very benign character, almost like a Peter Pan-esque, like, man-child, not man-child as in the negative term that we use nowadays, but, like, part half man, half boy, like grown-up man physically, but still with a lot of boyish charm and naivete, and you just know that this big bad city is gonna eat him up, and he's gonna get knocked down on his ass a couple of times before he's able to, finally start, maturing on the path to the great, legendary, eccentric chocolatier that we know him as. Um, and it's almost like there were a few moments that I also really enjoy I feel like, I don't know if this is the right word, but it was almost gothic in a few scenes, like, with the whole, when they would show scenes of, like, the 3 main players in the chocolate cartel bribing the police officer or just bribing people in general in their underground lair that was under the church, and yeah, like, it was just very it was dark, but in a very stylistic way, like gothic almost. Probably because it had to do with the church. Oh, Mr. Bean was also in this movie, so he was the one of the fathers, like, I forget the one of the clergymen of the church, I don't know the official title, and so he was corrupt, right? So that was also, like, a little bit of political commentary thrown in there. So all of these people are, um, corrupt, and they can be bribed with chocolate. So, yeah, and then Keegan Michael Peele played the corrupt head of police or chief of police, who was also working with the cartel to basically take down Willy Wonka and make sure that he was not able to establish himself in the city because they knew as soon as they first tasted one of his confections that this was a formidable opponent and that yeah, like his chocolates were truly delicious. They were truly the best in the world. So of course the 3 chocolatiers that were already in power wanted to do everything in their power to keep him out of the game. What else? What else? Yeah, Timothy Chalamet. So again, this is my first time seeing his performance, and I thought he was you know what? I'll give it to him. Like, he was very charming, very handsome. I feel like he captured I really like that he did his own spin on the Willy Wonka character. I mean, this is a origin story, right? It's a prequel to all of the stuff that we normally think of when we think of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory story. And so this is I kind of like on the one hand, yeah, like I really appreciate the fact that he didn't I just feel like he struck a really good balance. He didn't overdo it. Like he wasn't too overly eccentric the way that we think of, Johnny Depp's version or even Gene Wilder's version of Willy Wonka. This is like his young 20 something, 30 something. They never mention his age, but probably like 20-something-year-old self. So this is before he became like extremely eccentric. It's before he became a legend. So the way that Timothy played him, it was very matter of fact, I felt. It was very like and even the singing, like I loved the way that he sang the songs in this musical because it was more of like yeah, like just nothing was overdone. It was kind of like talking style singing, but he has a pleasant voice. It's like very pleasant, boyish, perfectly in tune, but not overdone. And none of the songs were like particularly hard, which I don't mind. I'm not that type of person. Like when I say that I like certain musical numbers or certain people's voices, I'm not talking about necessarily that it's the most technically impressive. I'm talking about the feeling that it evokes in me. So like, I was like in my teens and early 20s, I was a big fan of the indies rock scene, like indies visual K, and the more a band's songs sounded like. It was something that they kinda struggled and did their best to produce in somebody's basement, makeshift studio. The more that it was rough around the edges, the more that I would like the finished product, 'cause I liked the flavor that it brought, like the DIY flavor, so that's what I mean when I say that I thought the musical performances were perfect, 'cause it wasn't in your face like, "Oh, let us show you what a flashy musical movie we can put together." It wasn't like I didn't get the sense of any sort of ego on the part of the director or the actor trying to show off his singing chops. I felt like they were really committed to prioritizing the story first, like the emotion. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get the soundtrack, huh? I do have the soundtrack actually for the original, not the original, the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That one was done by Danny Elfman, but I feel like this one is definitely, it's a much different style. It's less epic sounding and it's more like fantastical, whimsical, which you could say. So, hold on, let me just one thing at a time. Okay, yeah. So you could say that we can go into like the cons or the critiques that I have, but again, these are not complaints. These are just kind of things that I noticed that okay, maybe they could have improved on this if they tried a little more. But so on the subject of Timothy Chalamet being very effortless and charming and not giving too much into like the eccentricities that we know the character for later on in his life, I feel like it can also be said that maybe he's a little bit too put together, like he's too charming and suave to the point where I felt that he never really truly suffered or you never get the sense that he truly struggled in this movie, even though he is hit with like hardships and people, tricking him. He has that he unfortunately runs into the Scrubbits who basically trick him into a contract of indentured servitude. Like they run this laundromat type of business or like laundry service where they every employee that they have working for them is basically an indentured servant that they tricked into having to pay off this huge debt to them after staying at their hotel or their inn for a night. And so the same thing happened to Wonka, right? Like when he arrived first to London and he needed a place to stay for the first night, the guy, I forget his name, the Mr. No, the woman was Mrs. Scrubbit, and then there was a guy that first approached Wonka, which you can tell immediately that he's the bad guy. But they were able to trick him into staying at their inn and signing this contract that had, like, a lot of really bad terms, but the thing is that Willy Wonka could not read before, before he met the orphan girl at the laundry service, and then she eventually teaches him how to read in return for him gifting her with chocolates, not in a transactional way, like, they become friends, and so she teaches him how to read. Yeah, and I felt that, like, because usually, whenever you have this premise of two people finding each other and sparking a friendship or a camaraderie, um, there's usually a point where as they go through some of the struggles or the conflicts in the movie, they tend to have a falling out, right? And I feel like that also was missing from this movie. Like he never had a falling out with the orphan girl. It was always just good vibes between them, which is good. I mean, but it kinda you could say that it was boring in a sense. Yeah, like, I guess for certain people, maybe if you're expecting something more eventful to happen, you might find certain elements of this movie boring because yeah, like I was saying, even though there's all these instances where Willy Wonka is, like, down on his luck or he's just finding out that, it's not as rose-colored as he imagined his life in London was going to be, as is usually the case with any story of a young person who goes to a big city to achieve their dreams, right? Like they kind of it's kind of a common trope, like they get bogged down and their light or their confidence, their hope for the future starts to dim day by day as they start to deal with the realities of living and surviving in a big city. But and then like for in Willy Wonka's case, his first grand opening, like his friends, so his friends that he makes, all of the other people who are trapped working at the laundromat. Not a laundromat, like the laundry service. I don't know what it's called, but the laundry service that Mrs. Scrubbit is running, basically on slave labor of these people that she tricked into signing a bad contract. All of those people in that group become Willy Wonka's friends and they help him escape. They are in on like his scheme to, you know, escape from time to time to sell chocolate to people in the city. But the thing is that he cannot legally sell chocolate without having an actual shop. So his friends at the laundry service somehow rent a place, like a really dilapidated old shop, but they fix it up for him and he's able to have his grand official chocolate shop grand opening. But then it's literally sabotaged by Mrs. Scrubbit. I keep wanting to say Mrs. Luckett, who is a character from Sweeney Todd, which is also a musical, like a very dark. I mean, Sweeney Todd is a lot darker than Wonka because that one is rated R, this one is rated PG. But yeah, that was directed by Tim Burton and it also starred Johnny Depp. Do you guys remember Sweeney Todd? So it kind of like this Wonka movie kind of also gives me Sweeney Todd vibes. But anyway, so yeah, I just felt like, he literally Mrs. Scrubbit puts some ingredient, like sabotages one of his batches of chocolates to where it's like blue yeti something, blue yeti sweat. It makes the people who eat the chocolate grow hair everywhere, like blue unnatural colors. And so once that happens at the opening of his shop, like at first everyone is amazed and super happy and buying all of his chocolates, but then people start to grow hair everywhere and then Willy Wonka realizes that, oh my god, somebody must have tampered with the ingredients in my chocolates. And then so the customers very quickly turn on him and they basically burn down his shop that he and his friends worked so hard to get the preparations and the decorations ready for the grand opening. But even in the midst of that, I feel like he never really hit rock bottom. Like he did hit rock bottom, but Timothy Chalamet is just so svelte and suave about it that it just didn't have as much weight, as I was expecting. Which again is not a big deal, but I just felt like it kind of made the overall, like, because usually with a good movie you want to have ups and downs, right? It's kind of like an emotional roller coaster that they take you on, and then by the end, everyone gets their just desserts, right? The bad guys get their punishment, and then Willy Wonka is triumphant and successful. But I felt like it was more of a flat line because even though I saw all of these misfortunes and bad things happening to Willy Wonka, and then it showed that, like he cried a little bit in one scene, I guess, but I just felt like, nah, he has it too good though. Like he's just too charming. Yeah, so that's one thing, one critique. You never really get the sense that he's struggling. And I also feel like, again, maybe this is maybe this is just continuing the tradition of keeping the mystique of the character, but I also felt like you never really truly got to know who Willy Wonka was. A lot of I feel like they were trying to fit too many backstories, like too many character stories into one movie. It was like a 2-hour runtime, which felt just right, a little bit long because honestly, I really had to pee about 30 minutes before the movie was up. Although that was my fault, I probably shouldn't have drank an entire bottle of lemon tea, but I was hungry, like, cause I'm got you guys know I'm doing OMAD, 1 meal a day. It's my 2nd week, and so I don't eat until 12 p.m. So this movie was the runtime was from 9:40 to 12 p.m. So I bought myself, like, a bottle of lemon tea to enjoy during the movie so that I'm not gonna break my fast with popcorn or something, right? And yeah, I drank that whole bottle and I really, really needed to pee like 30 minutes before the end of the movie, so that kind of distracted me. But maybe if I didn't drink that much, I would not have felt the time drag on. But yeah, it was just a lot of stories that they were fitting like the orphan girl, what's her name? Noodle, that's her nickname, and Willy Wonka's backstory. And then also each of the other laundry service worker backstories. Like there was an accountant, there was a comedian, there was a lady that used to work at a call center. All of them kind of had mini backstories as well. So maybe it was just like too much to fit into the runtime of the movie. But yeah, I just felt like we never really got to know who Willy Wonka himself was. Like, is he even human? Because there was quite a lot of, I guess you could call it magical realism, where I mean, every this is obviously taking place in the human world, and everyone is human. Willy Wonka himself is human. I mean, yeah, or human-like at least, but he also has somewhat seemingly magic abilities, but then he also wanted to be a magician, like when Noodle is talking to him and asking him about how he became a chocolatier or a chocolate maker, he says that he originally wanted to be a magician when he was a child, so maybe you can attribute the magic to that, like his magic tricks. Yeah, so anyway, Willy Wonka is human, everyone's human, but then like I guess it yeah, I guess the okay, so there's this one chocolate that um I forget what it's called, but when you eat it, it basically makes you levitate. It makes you fly after a while. And the chocolate itself, like when he opens the jar, all the chocolates fly out of the jar, like, suspended in air. It's because of, like, whatever special ingredient. So he travels like he was a world explorer before settling in London, right? And he traveled all over the world to harvest the best and the rarest ingredients for his chocolates. So that's kind of yeah, I guess that's in line with the canon story of Willy Wonka. And then he also kind of makes an enemy out of an Oompa Loompa that way. Oh, and also I guess this is their way of like in this movie, um the story is that landed on the Oompa Loompa Willy Wonka landed on the Oompa Loompa island at one point, and he stole some of their cacao beans, and so that's why there has been this one Oompa Loompa that was supposed to be standing watch over that particular tree that night, but he fell asleep, and so when he woke up, he realized that the cacao beans were stolen by Willy Wonka, but Wonka himself, he did not know that he was stealing the beans because he did not see any Oompa Loompas while he was on the island, so to him, it was just, like, fair game. Um, but, yeah, once that Oompa Loompa woke up, his Oompa Loompa friends or peers were basically, like, very upset with him that the cacao beans were stolen on his watch, so they excommunicated him from the island, basically, and he had to bring back, like, a certain amount of chocolate, 10 times or 10,000 times in order to repay his debt to his countrymen. So that was, like, basically the idea is that, like, Willy Wonka unknowingly stole from the Oompa Loompas, and I think that's this movie's way of smoothing over the whole controversy that the original movies had over the portrayal of Oompa Loompas. Like, some people accused them of being analogies for, I don't know, immigrant workers or something like that. Or maybe there was some truth to it, right? Like Roald Dahl himself, maybe we don't know exactly what he was modeling the Oompa Loompas after, but in this day and age, in the 21st century, it's not politically correct, right? So I think that was this movie's way of smoothing over that controversy by making it known that Willy Wonka is the one who, even though he didn't mean to, he actually technically stole from the Oompa Loompas. So by the end of the movie, he also makes peace with that one Oompa Loompa. Like he makes chocolate to repay, he makes a certain kind of chocolate to repay his debt to the Oompa Loompas. But yeah, so I felt that they overused that one type of chocolate, the one where you ingest it and it gives you wings, essentially. Not wing, like you don't grow wings, but it makes you levitate. I felt like that chocolate was overused because, like, it was the first chocolate that he introduced to the people of London when he was first, like, what's the word? Selling on the street, basically. That was his first day in London, and then so he was able to, he didn't have a shop, right? So he was just, like, out on the street in the gallery area, and then people were, like, amazed by the flying chocolates, and then, the police shut it down later, but then later on, he used the same chocolates several instances, I feel, to either get out of a sticky situation or yeah, like in the one of the final scenes when the 3 chocolate cartel members headed by Slugsworth, um, they had eaten his chocolates that make you fly, and so they kind of, like, flew away in the end. And then also oh, yeah, so, yeah, the when the chocolate cartel members locked him and, what's her name? Noodles? So they brought them to, like, the underground layer under the church, and then they locked them in a room where basically there was, like, a glass ceiling, and then they were going to basically flood the entire room up to the ceiling with chocolate to drown Willy Wonka and the girl, essentially, death by chocolate. That was their grand master plan to get rid of Wonka once and for all. And I felt that that scene, like the resolution to that near death scene was very unsatisfactory to me. I will say it was very does I don't know how to pronounce this. De ex machina plot device, cuz which is like Deus ex machina, God from the machine is what it translates to in English. It's basically a plot technique where if you have a seemingly unsolvable problem, instead of really crafting like a clever workaround or something that makes sense somewhat in the plot, you just come up with a random like solution to it. It just gets resolved somehow very easily, even though it's a very sticky situation or a seemingly unsolvable problem. So in this situation, it was like, the two of them, the chocolate is rising and it's carrying them to the top of the room with the glass dome, and then they have no way out, right? And then right before the chocolate hits the ceiling, they're both Noodle and Willy Wonka just take a deep breath and resign themselves to the fact that they're just gonna drown, which is very macabre for a children's movie. But then out of nowhere, the Oompa Loompa that Willy was dealing with comes and saves them, right? Like he breaks into the room with the lever controlling the chocolate water, not chocolate water, like the liquid chocolate, and so he's able to push the lever down and make the chocolate drain out, which I thought was very anticlimactic because that's not really that's an machine that's an ex machina resolution. It was very unsatisfactory to me, but I guess I don't know. It could be worse. Um, but yeah, I also noticed that it's interesting because it's interesting that they had, like, the chocolate cartel involved with both the police and the church, 'cause it was showing how, I mean, it's an obvious allegory to how the Catholic Church in the real world is very corrupt. What we all know, all the scandals that have happened with the previous popes and whatnot. But yeah, so they have an allusion to that in this movie with Mr. Bean as like the pope, or the head religious figure, the father figure. Like every time he goes into, oh yeah, when he goes into the confessional booth, um, instead of that when he goes into the confessional booth, that is the secret passageway to take him down into the layer of the chocolate cartel, who also collects and stores their chocolate reserves down underneath the church. And that's the source of all of their power, right? They're able to use chocolate to bribe city officials and to get their way and remain in power, in wealth. So I just thought it was funny because it reminded me of another movie, coincidentally, that Johnny Depp is also in. What is up with Johnny Depp everywhere? Um, I'm not a fan. You guys know my opinion on the whole Amber Heard situation. I'm not going to talk about it here, but yeah, these movies were made before all of that anyway, so we'll just go with that. So like Johnny Depp was in a film called Chocolat back in the day. I don't even remember how old that film is, but for some reason I have Chocolat, the DVD, in my mom's house, and that's why I remember it, because I watched it a lot because it was actually one of the DVDs that I owned. So in that movie as well, there's also like, it's about a woman, a gypsy-like woman who moves from town to town, and she is a chocolatier. Like, she sets up her chocolate shop in every town that she goes to, and then the one that she goes to in that movie, it's a very, like, conservative French religious French town, and they see her as a sinner because she's an outsider, right? And she's also bringing her delicious chocolate, recipes and confections with her. But then the people, like the Catholic Church, the religious, the fathers or whoever in that town, see her as a threat because they see her as bringing temptation to their pious little town, essentially, and they see her, her chocolate shop as like unnecessary temptation or sin that they need to avoid. And I feel like, I just wonder, is did the Wonka movie take inspiration from that, or is there just something about Catholic guilt and consumption of chocolate that goes together? Like, if anyone knows a deeper history behind this, please let me know. Is there something to do with, like, are you not supposed to eat chocolate in Catholicism or something? Because I feel like it's too much of a coincidence. Two movies centered around chocolate that also involve like this huge moral dilemma with key religious figures in the setting, in the town setting, that don't want, either they're, corrupt and they're accepting bribes in the form of chocolate because they're addicted, or they don't, yeah, like in, or they don't want, they're preaching to the public, right? They're preaching to their congregation that they need to rebuke the sin of eating chocolate, and just basically, of course, the chocolate, eating chocolate is a wider metaphor for just indulging yourself too much in the lustful, what's the word? Like in the hedonistic pleasures of the world. But then at the same time, behind closed doors, they themselves are indulging in this sin, essentially, is the message that I get. Because that also happened in Chocolat. Like the head father guy kept trying his darndest to paint the chocolatier woman as the devil, as a temptress, but then he breaks near the end of the movie and he basically, like, yeah, he gives in. He's unable to resist anymore, and he just eats her entire supply of chocolate confections that she had prepared for a party. And then she finds him because it's so delicious, right? And he has been denying himself of it so long that he cannot resist after he takes the first bite. And he's not supposed to be there in the first place, but like he sneaks into, the room that she has prepared with all of her chocolate confections that she has prepared to be ready for the celebration that she was hosting the next day. And then he eats something, and then he is unable to control himself from gorging himself on the chocolate. And then she finds him later on because he like sinks into a chocolate coma, and then she finds him later on when he wakes up, and then he kind of just like breaks down and cries and begs for her forgiveness. So I feel like the same thing, same kind of thing, same kind of theme of chocolate representing sin, or hedonistic, fleshly, earthly pleasures in general is plays out here in the Wonka movie. But yeah, no, like that was a charming movie. It's not, like I said, it could be, I don't think this word necessarily is correct, but I think, like, I'm just thinking if I was a child, let's say, looking for something with a lot of action and just like a fast-paced, action-packed movie, this would not necessarily be it. It might be a little more boring than what you were expecting. It's not that kind of like a huge epic adventure. It's more of like a heart-filled, heartwarming type of story. So whereas yeah, I would say the movie with Johnny Depp, that one is very like epic adventure style, but this one is more whimsical, nostalgic, slightly melancholic, like melancholic but with a happy ending, um, slightly gothic elements, and yeah, but at the end of it, I just felt a little bit like, okay, we still never find out who Willy Wonka truly is. Even the backstory that they give, it's very limited. Like we don't know what his mom did, how she got into making chocolate, which again, maybe it's better that way, because you do a big draw of the character is the fact that he's so mysterious and eccentric and otherworldly. But I feel like if they were gonna go there with portraying him in his, like, vulnerable early early days, it could have added to his humanity even more if they had given more of a fleshed out backstory. And there was also there was no romantic storyline whatsoever. I was half expecting him to have somewhat of a romantic love interest, but at the same time, I guess I'm kinda happy that they didn't go that route because again, he is not really that's not the point of the story, right? That has never been part of the Wonka identity. He's always been this Peter Pan type of figure. But I did think for a second though, I don't know why, that I thought the one of the ladies from the laundry service who was working for the Scrubbits at the laundry service, the one that was a former telephone operator. For some reason, I thought that she and Willie were going to have somewhat of a thing, but that was not the case. It was just him and, the orphan girl, which again, that's beautiful because not every movie has to have a romantic storyline for it to be complete or for it to demonstrate love. I feel like it was very refreshing to see the friendship aspect between him and Noodle portrayed so purely. Um, but then again, I feel like, nothing really challenged their friendship though. It would have made it even more impactful if they had a huge falling out or misunderstanding in the middle of the movie, and then by the end, like, maybe they stop talking to each other, but then at the end, in his time of true need, if Willy Wonka is in a bind, then Noodle comes through to save him, right? But yeah, Slugworth, that is one cold motherfucker. Because it was revealed, spoiler alert, that she, Noodles, was actually his niece, and she's the daughter of his brother, whose name starts with a Z. I don't remember. And he basically like orchestrated his brother's death so that he could be the sole heir to their family fortune. But then he didn't account for the fact that his brother had a child who the mother, oh yeah, so the mother brought Noodles to Slugsworth because Slugsworth was rich off of his chocolate earnings by this point. But the mother was like, after Slugsworth orchestrated the death of his brother, who was her husband, the mother was kind of left without a place to go and without a roof over her head or any means to raise her daughter. So she brought her daughter to Slugsworth, and begged him to, take the baby in and take care of her. And then he does accept the baby, but instead of being a good uncle, what's wrong, Maxine? Instead of being a good uncle and taking care of her, of course he's evil, so he like wraps her up and throws her down a laundry chute. That's how she ends up at the Scrubbits place. And then he told the mother that she died, which is really, really dark if you think about it. Like, I know it's a children's movie, but wow. And then, like, he also attempted to murder the daughter again before the movie wraps up. But yeah, so then one of the things that I felt, again, it was just very rushed. It seemed like there was too many loose ends that they were trying to tie up in too short of a runtime, was when Willy Wonka located her, Noodles' real mother. Apparently she was still living, and she lived at the library or the ruins of an old library. I don't know. He found her mother for her, and he was able to reunite the two. So that was like a sentimental moment. And like, other people that were working in the laundromat were also reunited, or they were able to integrate back into their old lives. But then Willy Wonka himself, it was just kind of like, that's why I was kind of half expecting that, okay, maybe he'll get a love interest or at least someone, right? Like some family member, someone that he can call a relative. But that never happened. He just remains this kind of lone, enigmatic figure, which is on brand, I guess. But I don't know. I couldn't help feeling kind of sad for him. Ugh. Oh my god, my eyes are so dry. I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. Sorry, do you guys hear Maxine in the background? Yeah, I might go back and get that pencil pouch. I don't know. I really wanted merch from this movie. Hold on one second. Say hi. She is so naughty. Look at this cat. Look at this face. Ew, stinky. You gotta wash your feet. You know what they could have given him? They could have given him a pet, like a dog or something. I feel like that would have taken off a little bit of the edge of, just Willy Wonka being completely alone, like, at the by the end of the movie. Of course, he still has Noodles as a friend for life, but she's reunited with her mom at the end of the movie, you know? So, like, she has a family, everyone else has a family or has found their soulmate. Like, his chocolates inspire people to, fall in love and let their guard down and reunite with their families, but then he himself doesn't have a family necessarily to go back to, so that kinda made me sad. But again, I guess that's canon. Aw, look at that face. Look at that face. I birthed this cat, just so you know. Like, I actually gave birth to her. It was a cute little just super charming, timeless, perfect, calm, chill, not trying too hard, not desperate, beautifully shot. Yeah, I feel like it was beautifully shot. Again, I didn't think the special effects were necessarily that mind-blowing, but again, I don't think that that wasn't the point of this movie, it wasn't really needed to tell this particular story. But yeah, I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought that the choreography, it was choreographed really well, both Willy Wonka's dance and song parts, as well as there was one scene where when the cartel, the three top chocolatiers in the city are bribing the chief of police in their underground dungeon under the church. That was like, I thought that was really clever the way that they did that musical number. And I'm trying to think, is there anything I missed? And yeah, Willy Wonka, he's just really likable. Like, he's a very, very likable character, very humanized in this version. Um, like I said, Timothy really toned down the eccentricity knob. Um, it seemed like he was very committed to just bringing out the human side, the relatable side of Willy Wonka. But for the most part, he's still like a very carefree, happy-go-lucky type of figure, so he never loses that aspect of his personality, which again, may be the reason why I felt like he never truly struggled. He was never truly down on his luck despite all of the things that happened to him. And I did feel like the sets were, I mean, again, there's only so much that you can do in a single movie, but I felt like the sets were a little bit limited. It just seemed like, you know, they had, like, it was very clear they had, okay, the gallery, what's it called? Gallery Gourmet. That was like one street. You can tell, okay, that's one complete set. And then they had the underground layer underneath the church of the chocolate cartel. That was another set. And then the inside the laundromat slash in place that the Scrubbits were running, that was another set. It didn't really feel like, I wasn't really sold that this was a complete other world, But then again, I don't know what the budget was for this movie. Was it even like a big budget film. I wouldn't be surprised if the budget was not that big, even though, like, you would think, because I would assume since Willy Wonka, the story and the character is so iconic that they would just automatically it would be a given that this would be a huge budget film, but that might not necessarily be the case. Because I also feel like this movie in general, it really crept up on us, like, I don't think anyone was expecting a prequel, an origin story of Willy Wonka to come out. I certainly wasn't when I first saw the trailer this summer, which, by the way, when I first saw the trailer, it was, like, August, I think. 1 second. When I first saw the trailer, it was this summer, probably when I was watching Mission Impossible, and then I thought to myself, because it said that it was coming out, in December or during the holiday season, and I thought to myself that, "Oh my god, that is so far away, like, why did you this movie looks interesting, I wanna see it, but don't show it to me in August if it's only gonna come out in December." But now it is literally December, and, like, that felt like I blinked my eyes and the movie was here. So that freaks me out. Like, I know that everyone says this every year around this time, around the holidays and New Year's, but literally what is going on? I feel like I was caught in a time slip or something. Like, I'm not slow down, okay? I'm trying to slowly enjoy my life. I feel like time is just dragging me along. It's going too fast. You know what I just remembered? Oh my god. This kind of ruins it for me, I'm not gonna lie. So, I just remembered that Timothy Chalamet is apparently dating Kylie Jenner. I mean, not that okay, I don't have, like, anything against Kylie Jenner. She actually seems like a really sweet girl, like, all things considered. I mean, I feel like she doesn't really I mean, she if you consider the way that she was brought up in front of cameras all her life, like, it makes sense that Um, she doesn't really have a personality because she herself has spoken about how she feels like she can't be herself in front of the camera. I mean, you can imagine having that kind of an upbringing, what that does to your psyche. She's constantly like she doesn't know a day in her life where or a moment. She doesn't know a time in her life where she didn't constantly have to be aware and worried about her aesthetic image and how it came off to the public. So I do feel like genuinely sad for her on that front. And I feel like, out of all of the Kardashians, she might actually be the genuinely the nicest of them. So I'm not saying that she's a bad person or anything. I'm not trying to put her down, but the fact that he's dating her now. I just feel like, "Okay, now you've shattered the illusion for me." And anyway, I was never a Timothée Chalamet fangirl in the first place, but it's just like, okay, if you look at some of his dating history, like the way that he moves out in these streets, it's giving a little bit of man slut vibes. It's kinda slutty the way that he moves. Like, didn't he also have photos leak of him making out with some model on a boat? Not that you can't make out with a model on a boat, like, I'm sure that's par for the course if you're a Hollywood actor, but the fact that they were, like, paparazzi pictures of it, I don't think it's a good look for him, you know? Like, we want him to stay classy. I feel like this role is a good look for him. It's classy, it's timeless. It is a little bit strange. Like, at first, it was a little bit strange for me to wrap my head around the fact that Timothy Chalamet is 27. So I thought that that was like, I've never having to reimagine or take a second look at the Wonka story in which Willy Wonka is actually younger than me at this particular time is kind of weird because I feel like we always look at him as like at least in his late 30s or 40s, right? We only know of him up until now as the successful, like decades long owner and head of the famous chocolate factory. So it was kind of weird to for me at first to wrap my head around the concept that there could be a young version of him that's like even younger than I am now. But I feel like now I'm on board because Timothy Chalamet pulled it off really well. But like it's ruining it for me though, remembering that he's dating Kylie Jenner. Like, why? I feel like okay, I don't really care, but for his fan base, I can't imagine that they're happy about this. Like, not that he should date or not date people based on who his fans think he should date, not at all. But I don't know. Because I feel like why else would you date Kylie Jenner unless it was mostly for clout? But then it doesn't make sense because like Timothy Chalamet doesn't need or want this kind of clout. This would actually go against his image, if anything. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know. I like the fact that he is not like he's very handsome. I see what the hype is all about, but he's also not not handsome in like the AI TikTok filter sense. Like there is some character to his face, so I like that. I think that also adds to the charm of his rendition of the Willy Wonka character. Hi, Haney. Oh my god. I'm just rambling at this point. Came to say hi and send you love. Oh my god. I received that and I send it right back. I was so happy on our call a couple of days ago. Was that like yesterday or last week? I don't even remember. Time is a blur for me. I just take every like I'm living hour to hour, honestly, for these past 2 weeks. But yeah, I think like but yeah, that's basically everything that I have to say about the movie. I really want the soundtrack and I want them to come out with better merch, but if they don't, it's no big deal because I can just buy Wonka chocolate, actual Wonka branded chocolate, and that will be my souvenir. Cause I guess I could buy the stickers. I was thinking like maybe if I just could collect one of the stickers from each movie that I go to watch and then I put it all in a booklet, but I don't know. I feel like it's not worth it though, cause like the stickers are 400 yen. I would rather pay more for something that I can actually use, like a mug cup or a notebook or something. Oh yeah, they didn't even have a notebook this time around. They sell merch at the cinema here in Japan. I don't know how it is in Hungary or other countries, but I feel like this is a Japan unique thing. Like yeah, pretty much for every movie or every major blockbuster that comes out, they sell a lot of branded merchandise for that particular movie. So if I feel like I really connect with a film, I will often pick up something like a notebook, or they also have like booklets, picture booklets about the film with behind the scenes photos and interviews, exclusive interviews with the actors and things like that. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the the Wonka movie. I think it's a great little Christmas film. Very nostalgic, instant classic. But maybe not for everyone. Like if you're looking for something very exciting, this is not going to be that thrilling of an adventure. This is more like heartwarming. So, yeah. I don't know what time is it. Okay, it's still kind of early. I might take a little break and then I might come back and live stream about a different topic. that has been weighing on me this week. Not weighing on me, but like some stuff came up and I realized, oh, this would be a good topic or a good reminder to share with everyone. So, yeah, thank you for listening to my thoughts on the movie, and I'll see you probably in a few more minutes. But I need to change my contacts because my eyes are dying. They're so dry. So, I'll see you later. Bye.